It's akin to Ayn Rand's response to the claim that love is sacrifice. Imagine, on your wedding day, telling your bride to be that, well, I'm doing this. I'm marrying you purely as an act of sacrifice. There's nothing in it for me. It's not what I want at all, but I'm going to marry you as an act of self-sacrifice. Who would want that? What woman wouldn't slap you in the face and walk out of the church?
Can you imagine any kind of romantic love? I mean, the whole essence is you're the most selfish person I can spend time with. You're the most selfish thing for me to contemplate. I want to touch you. You're so wonderful. Romantic love is all about you're so special. And what we're actually saying is, well, there's nothing that qualifies someone as being special. Can you imagine bringing that to the table?
The right makes a fool of itself because it has divorced itself from rationality deliberately, and it ceded that to the left, right? The left has the intellectuals and the academics, and the right are in rebellion against academia, and they're in rebellion against some of the more egregious anti-conceptual things that the left is putting out there in the culture. But it winds up becoming a rebellion against reason qua reason, so and then they embrace tradition and religion as the alternatives to rationality. So it's really hard to take them seriously about anything.
And here is where my sympathy to the worker stops. When a politician tells you, look, you work for a public entity, let's say the public coal mines, it's running at a loss. I'm not going to shut you down, but do you agree to become shareholders? So you're not going to be paid by the state. I'm literally I'm handling you the coal mine. Do you want it? Of course, then the trade unionists will say no. Because what they mean fair share is take from someone else and give it to me. So that's where my sympathy would stop from someone. So first of all, when someone is striking and is a state employee, again, it's impossible to say if this is a fair strike. And on the other hand, the only solution would be, okay, do you want to run this by yourself? But now it's not anymore a state monopoly and there's nothing to protect you from competition. And then they say, no, I'm not stupid. That's why I'm way more disillusioned about strikes than I used to be, even in my early libertarian years where I thought, okay, trade unions, voluntary association, nothing wrong with it, which in principle it's true, but if you scratch under the surface, it almost never works like that.
Again, we got into this mess by the government overstepping its proper role of protecting the rights of the individual, the government interfering in people's property rights and in their right to conduct their business, which is their property, that ends up violating actual inalienable rights like the right to speak and the right to run your business. So the government saying we're going to go out there and prevent racism or discrimination or hate in the workplace or in the economy, in doing so, they end up violating actual property rights and the right to speak.
People have a right to their own children, to make decisions about their own children and they're using their own minds and their own rational self-interest, and government forcing you to sell a kid milk instead of Coke is, it's evil. I mean, it's actually evil on its face. And needless to say, it's an unbelievable slippery slope. And what causes it are ideas.
The taxi drivers' trade unions in Greece, their line was, the leader of the union, who was a conservative, by the way, he said something like, if I see anyone driving Uber, they're going to be lynched in the most central square of Athens. And instead of a police officer going there and saying, you are arrested for actually inciting violence, the government banned Uber indeed. So Uber would be so useful, but we have to live without it. Why? Because the rights of the trade union is somehow more sacred than mine. And because my hands are tied from saying, the hell with you, Uber will make my life better and also will make incidentally, the life better of all the Uber drivers. But no, again, collectivism and altruism is a bitch. It tells you, suck it up and suffer for others. And they're using it as a weapon against us.
What you get from Ayn Rand is that there is a fundamental difference between motivating by values versus by threats. And that this is a life and death difference. And this comes from her understanding of the nature of value, her having validated the nature of value, reduced it to facts and reality, biological facts. And so if you're trying to understand how the human mind works and how action works and goal-directed action, you need to understand it in terms of we're biological organisms that need to gain values to live. And it turns out that's the way you need to think about psychology. There's been a lot of confusion about this because if you just look at the basic emotions, like I have a categorization of basic emotions and I've got 8 positive and 8 negative. And if you just look at that, it seems like, oh, well, they're positive ones, they're negative ones. Some of them are about gaining values and some of them are about avoiding threats. Well, that's not true. If you look more closely, in fact, all of the basic emotions, this is my view of what this is, all of them are created fundamentally by values that you have formed in your subconscious. So here, this is the thing that's a little new and maybe somewhat controversial. I think the right way to think about values from a psychological perspective is that they are things that have been stored in your subconscious with value significance, which means that they have the capacity to trigger emotions, and they can trigger the whole range of emotions.